Hi, everyone.
Hey, Ruth.
Hi, Ruth. Okay, gang's all here. We're now broadcasting live on YouTube and recording. I'd like to call this meeting of the Shelton Charter Revision Commission to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. As always, we are noting that we are operating under Governor Lamont's Executive Order 7B, allowing us to do virtual meetings during the COVID pandemic. We are broadcasting live on our YouTube channel. We are recording this, and links are available on the Shelton, City of Shelton website for the public to view. With that, before we get started tonight, we have a bit of news. Ruth, would you like to share the good news with us?
Sure. So I just wanted to kind of address the elephant that may be in the room, that this will be my last meeting on the Charter Revision Commission. I have accepted an appointment, a vacant seat on the Planning and Zoning that was vacated by Commissioner Tony Pagoda. So I had notified Dan yesterday regarding this, and I will submit my formal resignation to you tomorrow. And then I will later be sworn in as the new Planning and Zoning Commissioner. I've read our discussions. I think they've been very productive and very cordial. I've really enjoyed that. I do wish I could stay, but it's a charter provision that when you serve on planning and zoning, you cannot serve on any other appointed or elected board. And it's actually a something that I believe should remain in the charter. I wouldn't want to suggest that, oh, because of me, that it should be changed. I really do agree with that, because there's always some sort of conflict of interest, or could be potentially a conflict of interest depending on who wants to run. So it is something that I believe in. But I wish you all the best, and I'm certainly going to follow along and see all your fine work. And I wish you the best in getting the revision passed when it comes time for the referendum.
Well, Ruth, first off, just congratulations and thank you for your continued service to the city of going back on planning and zoning. And just thank you for your service here. You've been a core part of this team, and we're sad that you won't be with us to the finish line, but you'll be with us in spirit. And and we will certainly keep you abreast of, obviously we are through the vast majority of our substantive deliberations and about to get into the details, but you've been tremendously valuable for the city of Shelton and for this commission. So thank you.
Thank you for this.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you.
Ruth.
Good luck, and we're going to call on you if we have questions. So
All the way.
You come back to give testimony.
There you go.
And with that, she's not off the hook yet, though. So she's on for tonight. So she will be a full participant for tonight until she gets sworn in. So with that, gang, we are in the home stretch of our second phase. So you remember we had 3 phases: idea generation, idea debate, and then third is writing the actual charter. So we are at the end of 2, the beginning of 3. I unfortunately did not make as much progress as I would have wanted with version 1 of the charter, so I don't have that for you yet. But what we do have is a very limited number of ideas to go through. So we might have a quick meeting this week, famous last words, based on the fact that we only have 14 remaining ideas, and some of them are in buckets. So we actually don't have that much left to deliberate on unless there are other things people want to bring up. So let's start this week with kind of the main topic from last week, which is we had a big discussion about term lengths, where we had different ideas, whether it was moving the Board of Ed to 4 years staggered. We had the appointed boards, whether they should be standardized, whether the library board should be reduced from 6 years to 2 years, and then P&Z being 2 years. I think we've determined that this is a decline because it is pretty clear in state statutes that this is P&Z for a board of our size needs to be 4 years. So with that, we kind of left off the last meeting saying, okay, we had a very robust conversation. Everybody go think about it. Want to hear thoughts from anybody who's reflected further or have further thoughts on this?
I'd be happy to start.
Do I get?
I thought about, Don's argument on the P and Z, about keeping commissioners consistent with the 4 years. So that's the way we have it today. And so I guess I'm okay with that. I did speak with Steve Bellis on the library board, saying we're going to, change things there from 6 years. He thought that was a good idea. And he recommended, they have the same problem with, there's 6 members on that board. And he suggested possibly going to 7, to keep it consistent with other boards. And then, if we keep the Board of Education with 2 years, that's status quo too. So maybe that kind of works for everybody.
Okay. Reaction to that or other thoughts that people had?
I agree with what Gary said. I think 2 years on the Board of Ed, the library board, I'm glad you got Steve Bellis's info on that. And I think you're right with the P and Z, so.
And I also agree with Gary on the Board of Education. I know there was some strong arguments for 4 and for 2 years, but if we're going to keep things consistent and put the decision into the hands of the electorate, I think 2 is the best way to go.
I'm also good with that. And I definitely think the library board should be reduced from the 6 to the 4. And I'm good with the 2 years for the, the 4 years for the, what were we? I think it was the 2 years for the Board of Ed. I'm good with that instead of the 4.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is, oh, go ahead, Ruth.
I'm in agreement with all that as well. I think the one thing we did not address, because it kind of got switched a little bit, was the planning and zoning alternates. There had been some recommendation for the alternates to be also 4 years rather than the 2 years that they currently are at. I've also heard some comments on the issues that one alternate may bring to the table. So it's just something I would throw out there for the group to consider, reinstating the 7 members and then 2 because they don't count toward the actual membership, but to stipulate in the charter that they only represent their own party. So because we feel it's a appointed position, well, if we just do one alternate, it's truly an elected because, if you're only electing one person, but if it's the other way with 2 members, the way it currently is now, those 2 members can sit in for either party if there's a vacancy. So just something to ponder.
Yeah, let me pause you there because I want to go there, but let me finish off on what everybody just said. I want to make sure we have it. So P and Z keep 4 years. Library board, I heard reduce from 6 years to 4 years. I heard standardize the appointed boards at 4 years. And I heard keep the Board of Education at 2 years. Is that right? And is everybody good with that?
Yeah, and increase the membership of library from 6 to 7.
I'm also good with that. With people's reaction to that?
I think that's fine. I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
I am as well.
I agree. I like odd numbers. We got accept there, got accept here, accept, and increase number of members from 6 to 7. Got it.
Dan, can you hear me?
Oh, now I can, Don. I couldn't before. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. You don't want to hear me anyway on this one.
Go ahead.
I agree with the 7-1 on the P and Z, and I agree with everything else, but I don't agree with the Board of Ed.
Okay, got it.
I don't think 2 years is enough to hold people accountable. And I don't think it's enough to give them an appropriate learning curve. And again, I realize there's very little will to move it to 4, but I firmly believe that's the way to go.
Okay, do you want to keep that? We're still operating under unanimity. Do you want to keep that one open for further discussion?
No, I don't, no, I just prefer to vote. I mean, I don't, you know, again, you know, if there's, it's just redundant, you know. Again, I think that, I don't think 2 years is an adequate number to achieve any kind of real competence. And it's certainly not an adequate time to really see the results of what your decision, you know, so.
Yeah, so it is like totally up to you, Don, as the members who's kind of disagreeing with the rest of the group. I am actually okay keeping this open for further discussion, or
No,
it's up to you.
I don't have an issue with voting. I'm going to support whatever decision we come to as a board. Okay, but I just want you to have my opinion. That's all.
Got it. Understood. So having heard that, I think that that's an accept, that we're gonna, or excuse me, a decline, that we're gonna keep it status quo, noting Don's feelings about this, which we explored in depth in the last meeting, and I'm fine with that as well. So then the question from Ruth, that Ruth just brought up was, okay, so we eliminated the alternates, we brought back one. 2 questions. One is, should we have 2 rather than 1, maintain the status quo, but have them only be able to substitute for their parties? And should the P&Z alternate be 4 years rather than 2 years? So those are 2 separate questions. Let's address them one at a time. Ruth, give us the explanation again. Why do we need 2 alternates rather than just 1?
Well, I think the 1 is sufficient, to be honest with you. I just think it may raise issues that the board could get really imbalanced, if you will. Depending on, you know, the party that's in power at the time, you're more than likely going to have that person as the alternate, of that party as the alternate. I mean, it just makes sense that that's the way it would be.
Right.
So to eliminate that issue, then you would have 2, but not to allow them to, which many towns do, you can only step in for your party.
Correct. Yeah, because otherwise you're saying like, hey, for example, let's say it is a 5-2 board and one of the members of the minority party recuses themselves for whatever reason, the alternate steps in, and now you basically have a 6-1 vote for one party.
Right.
I see the logic of that. The counter argument being is that, okay, we're moving back to parties appointing them, right? Parties appointing the alternates, right? You'll have 2 people run and they'll automatically win, right? Rather than it be an election.
But it wouldn't throw off the balance of any vote.
Correct. Correct. Thoughts on that, right? Again, as most things, there's a tension between democratically elected versus maintaining minority representation. What do folks think?
I will. I think we should have the 2 and 1 represent each party. It has worked in the past, so if it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Well, just to clarify, in the past, either alternate could sit in for either party.
Right.
So
So
has there been a problem with that in the past, Ruth?
No, but the composition would change. The minority representation would be changing by adding the additional member. So I'm not saying it will be a problem. I'm just saying it could possibly be a problem.
I mean, theoretically, once everybody gets elected, you're not supposed to be, you know, for a party, you should be, you know, for the good of the city. I just like the fact that you're elected. But, you know, I'll go along with the group.
Well, in an ideal situation, it would be an independent that was elected as an alternate. In an ideal world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ideally.
Well, I could go either way. If we're taking a consensus,
yeah,
I
so
like the-
I'll speak. Go ahead. No, you go ahead. I want to speak. I want to hear everybody's opinion.
I was gonna say, I feel that the two alternates, one from each party, and they should represent their own party. I mean, even though I don't think parties should have any affiliation, it should have any indication of how you vote or how you do anything. You shouldn't vote, you should vote by how things are, how you feel. The party shouldn't have any bearing on it. Like you should be voting independently, thinking.
Right.
So, but I do feel if we're voting that way, to have one Republican and one Democrat, or one from each party.
Yeah, I'm comfortable either way on this one. If you're for, like, I too like elections. I like taking power away from the parties and giving it to the voters. But I see the logic of two, so I'm fine either way with whatever the group decides. Don, Dave, any strong feelings on this one?
I like the 7-1. And
I like the alternates, one from each party.
Got it. So we're kind of split on this one, right? And so it's kind of like whether it's one or two. I think we got to think on this one as well. Again, I don't feel strongly on it. I heard both sides on that one. I think we're pretty evenly split too. So let's punt on that one. I'm going to add that in. P&Z alternates 1 or 2. And then the other question, and this is discussion. And then for the 4 years point, Ruth, give us a little more on that, on why 4 versus 2.
That's actually something that was raised by the current chairwoman, Jenny Harger, when she presented at the first public hearing. So I'm just reiterating her thoughts on that.
And what are your thoughts on it?
I really don't have any strong feeling either way, to be honest with you. An alternate job is kind of a lonely job, if you will. It could be frustrating at times because you're basically just sitting there. And so to have to run every 2 years, there could be an argument that you may get good candidates that are willing to do it the 4 years and not have to run every 2 years. But I think on the other hand, there's also people that might not want to serve a 4-year term. So I think it could go either way. And I don't really have any strong feelings either way. I just know it was raised and I think we have to address it.
I agree. And I actually think it's tied to the decision of 1 versus 2, because if it's 2, it's not really an election. It actually doesn't matter, right? It's like the parties are going to appoint you. And so why not make it 4 years? It doesn't matter, right? If it's 1, then it could go either way, right? Because if it's a true election, then you got to decide, does 2 years make sense when everybody else is 4? Do you make them 4 as well? I don't know, my bias is in favor of 4 on this one, but I think it's a little linked to whether it's 1 or 2.
I agree with what you just said, Dan. If the others are 4, I think the alternate should be 4.
What do other folks think? Go ahead, Alyssa.
I'm wondering if a P&Z alternate may not want to be an alternate and may want to run for the full board. So then they would have to resign, and then what would happen? An appointment?
That's
Yes.
correct. That's correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe that's where it should be 2 years and give them an opportunity to run for the full board.
A good point too.
That's a good point as well.
Do we know if that's
It's a good-
happened? Are alternates, have alternates eventually run for the board?
I
Anybody know
think
of anybody?
that's how I got on
Oh,
10 years ago.
okay.
I believe so. It was a long time ago, but I believe I started as an alternate.
And
Okay.
actually, and speaking theoretically, that's how it should be, right? That's actually what we would want from whatever party
Right.
they, for someone to learn the ropes as an alternate and then be able to become a full member.
What did you think then of being on there for 2 years as an alternate? And how long were you an alternate?
I was an alternate for just a term and a half
So as soon as that term was up, I ran at the next election. There was a lot of changes on the board at that time. Al Cribbins was coming off, so there was a slew of changes that were happening. So it was advantageous for me to run. But at that time, the terms were only 2 years for all commissioners. It wasn't a 4-year term yet.
Oh, even the regulars.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
that didn't change until 2013 or so.
Well, I guess I'm putting two ideas together and I'm thinking, I like the idea of 2 alternates for 2 years. And let that be a stepping stone.
What do people think of that?
I think there's logic in it.
I do too, but maybe we could have more time to think about it, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. But much like we reflected on the other one, let's reflect on this one. Okay. So now we're into the voting section. And 2 of these that are here, one is to define what is a quorum on appointed boards and commissions. Basically, to put in the charter to say that a quorum equals 50% plus one of the members. And then the other one was whether we shift the Board of Aldermen from requiring 5 positive votes to pass legislation or ordinances to moving that to actually just be a majority of those present and voting. So, this was where we had ended up on this, was maybe for ordinances in the budget require an absolute majority of 5, and for anything else like approval of a appointment or something like that, to just do a majority of those present and voting. And unfortunately, I have not gotten a chance to talk to John, and so I don't have his input yet.
Dan, I like that myself. I mean, if 2 people didn't show up and you want to make an appointment, majority rules, but I think an ordinance or the budget, are 2 very important issues, are probably the biggest issues that aldermen do vote for.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with that too. If it's something important, there should be a quorum. There should be a majority of the board.
Yep.
Things of less importance, just the majority of who's there.
So let's do this. I like it as well. Unless anybody's opposed to this, let's move this to the accept column, and I'll still ask John just to make sure that we're not screwing anything up unintentionally. But I think this one should go to accept, unless anybody's opposed to it, because it addresses an issue Tom Harbinson had brought up way back at the first public hearing. Then the first one on defining a quorum, this is where I like, yes, I don't know if it's needed, right? Like, most of these boards operate under Robert's rules, which would define a quorum anyway. But I don't think on the other hand, I don't think there's any harm in defining what's a quorum for appointed boards and commissions, which would be majority plus 1.
I like it as it's written, quorum shall be defined as majority plus 1.
Opinions on this one? And obviously, this is only for appointed boards because we've defined the Board of Aldermen already, and Board of Ed and Board of and Planning and Zoning are governed by state statute. I'm taking silence as who cares? This one's not going to impact anything in reality. I say we put it in. It's not going to. And again, I'll check with John. It's not going to change anything because this is how they operate today. We're just putting it in the charter. So again, I'll double check with John, but I don't think that's going to make a huge difference.
So what would that be for a 7-member board? 5 members?
4 members.
Mhm.
So it's 50% plus one, right? So 50% is 3.5 members. So that would be 4. You would need 4 to conduct business. And then you would need 3 of those 4 to actually pass something.
Okay, so would people question why you didn't round up rather than round down
Uh,
on
well-
your 3.5 person?
Well, 3.5 people rounded up is 4. Right, so for a 7-member board, 3.5. Oh, I see what you're saying. 3.5 plus 1 is 4.5. Why don't you round up to 5? I see what
Right.
you're saying. I mean, we can clarify that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you should.
Yeah, just say it straight out. A quorum will be defined as 5 or 4 or whatever out of.
Then 50% of the membership.
Okay.
This is where we're going to get into language stuff. But now anything that's greater than 50%.
Okay.
Good catch, Ruth. I didn't understand what we're saying, then I did. Good. Good. Then this last one, again, my apologies, it's been a crazy week, is I got to look at the other charters. I didn't do this on the first pass to see if voters can have less votes than the number of positions available. And this is where, when I was reading through, I just have to go back and find them. There were some charters who did this, right? So like in this, we have the Board of Education here, but it would apply to any board, right? Where it could be for planning and zoning as well, where you choose up to X, you have X votes, but X is less than the number of positions available. The logic here being that, the members of one party can tend to pick who they don't want to be on the board and vote for other members of the other party.
Dan, we really haven't talked about it. When you're basically saying 4 years, so planning and zoning would be elected every 4 years, or are we going to stagger them?
It would be staggered as it is now, I would think.
Or you just elect all 4 or everybody in one election, and then you wait for the 4 years to elect them again?
You could do that as well. That's something we can consider.
I haven't really thought about it, and I would like to.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why on this one, I just don't think we have enough information on this one to talk about it yet. My fault, mea culpa. I'll try to get us some more information on that one. And it's gonna be the same on the next couple, right? These are ones we genuinely needed some more information on, right? So that one was the least cost, most responsible, right? And either changing it to most responsible, which is what the purchasing agent suggested, or what I suggested was leave least cost, most responsible, but let the Board of Aldermen overrule that if there's someone who's not the lowest cost who we want to go with. But I think we had questions of where did this come from? Is this legal terms? Is this standard terms? I can tell you from other charters, it does appear in other charters the same way. I don't know how it developed or where it came from, but I need to call the purchasing agent and Jack Basher and get more information from both of them. Same things with the notice requirements, right? The idea of do we put that on the website rather than publish in the paper? I just have to get more information on it if there's any legal reason why we can't.
My understanding on that, Dan, there is not on purchasing. It was in our charter, but there's no legal reason for it to be there.
Got it. So I think if that's true, if there's no legal reason for it to be there, I think where we all were was kind of like, yeah, we should, kind of get rid of that requirement because it's costly and unnecessary in this digital age, as long as it's appearing someplace in public, like on the website.
Mm-hmm.
So Gary, where you got that from a lawyer, or where'd you get that from?
I got that from the purchasing agent.
Oh, really? Oh, good. All right. Why then you've done the work for us. Good. I say we move that to the accept column unless anybody.
Gary, I missed that. What was?
I talked to Gene Sullivan at one point, and I asked him if it was an illegal requirement to publish a quote in a newspaper, and he said, no, it was in our charter.
Is he aware of state statute?
And I'm going by memory, but he didn't believe it was in state statutes.
So let's do this. Let's, much like the other ones, let's double check this isn't in state statutes.
I mean, I do, I mean, I know there's been bills even in Hartford to do away with, publishing notices in newspapers. And the newspaper lobby is fighting that. I mean, it's a big source of revenue.
Oh, I'm sure.
Get it?
You know,
But
I wonder,
it's a big cost to the towns.
I wonder if these two items shouldn't be via ordinance. They're kind of dynamic issues. I mean, they're going to change. You want to be nimble on the ground when you do some of this stuff. I wonder if both of these issues shouldn't be.
Yeah, so the charter becomes silent on it. And then, and then punt it to the aldermen, and then they could adapt. They could
That's
look
a
at
good
it
idea.
on a 2-year basis or something like that.
I like that idea, Don, too.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not a bad idea.
I like it. The only thing I want to do, and it's a language thing, is to say the Board of Aldermen shall, right, rather than may, right? Because I think we do need some form of standards and we do need some form of public notification, but leaving it up to the Board of Aldermen and how technology changes, I think that's a really good idea, Don.
So what you're saying, Dan, is the Board of Aldermen shall review this every 2 years, or?
Oh, they shall, and this is where we'll have to do the language, but the language would be something like the Board of Aldermen shall establish the basis for which we will decide on bids, and they shall decide what public notice requirements we will follow in line with state statutes.
That works.
Yep.
I mean, something like that works. So that works for me.
That's good language, what you just said. Write that down, Sophie.
You got it, yeah.
Perfect.
Shall establish standards by which bids are awarded. Public notice requirements in line with state. Something like that. Good idea, Don. Perfect. Okay. Next one is the state of emergency clause. And the question here was, we looked at a couple examples. And again, the question was twofold. Is one, what do state statutes already allow the mayor to do? And two, did the mayor think we needed anything above and beyond this? And again, I've not spoken with the mayor about this, so I don't have information unless anybody else does.
One thing I did find today was the town of Brookfield, the first selectman exercised an executive order to suspend the zoning regulations to allow businesses to open safely. So there's been the requirement that if you have a restaurant, you can only have outdoor dining. And so a lot of regulations don't allow outdoor dining. I know Shelton is one that hasn't always been approving of outdoor dining, so favorable, yeah. So it allows him to and also to waive fees, to expedite the process for folks to do so, and to waive the fees for such. So I'm not sure if that's something that would have been that fine-tuned in the governor's executive order, or if that's something I remember our discussion on this, and I'm thinking, what else could possibly, the mayor have or first selectman have to issue an executive order for? So just bringing that up as a point of reference.
Yeah, it's kind of like, if we are going to do this, we're going to make it super general, right? Like the ones I like are the ones that were like, hey, the mayor can do what he needs to do when he or she declares a state of emergency, but it only lasts for 72 hours unless the Board of Aldermen approve it, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting time, and hopefully it never comes back like this. And you got the governor issuing the executive orders, and
Right.
and that's not a healthy thing to a lot of people. So, do you really want the first selectman or a mayor to be, have the ability to have, executive orders? He got the power because of the governor.
Right.
Hey, Dan, regarding this issue of notices, it is a general state statute, and the state statute is 7-163E. And it talks about it, but I mean, I'm trying to read through it right now, but that's what it says about anything with regards to published legal notices in a newspaper.
Got it.
Yep. This is not a published legal notice. A bid is not a legal notice. It's an invitation to bid. I think there's a difference there.
Yeah, and that's why I think that, I think Don's suggestion takes us away from that. It basically says, look, Board of Aldermen got to figure that out. Right.
Right, because theoretically, Dan, the legislature could say, towns could go on their website and not newspapers. And if we have it in our charter, then we still have to do it.
Right.
Right.
No, I agree.
So I think that was a good idea to let them make the decision.
Yep. So back to, thank you for that though, Sophia. Back to the state of emergency then. Are people kind of like, you want to keep this open for discussion and see what state statutes and the mayor have to say, or are people kind of like, we don't need it? Again, I don't feel passionately about this one way or the other.
In a situation where, an event occurred, you've got the mayor who has control of the police department. He's got control of civil preparedness. He's got control of the local health authorities. He's got a lot of power, to take charge in those situations. I don't like the idea of setting him up with something other than he already has, which is extreme, I think.
So are people kind of?
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I agree as well. I was just pointing out, I was trying to rack my brain, like what would they possibly need that power for? And I came across this example, so I just thought I would share it, but I'm in agreement with Don.
The only thing I can think of is if he had to go out and immediately buy materials or rent equipment or something like that, that he would need to make a snap judgment for. I understand everything you said, and I know he has, control over all of the important safety and health areas, but this would kind of refer to the money and spending, not going out to bid. If you need something immediately, that's it's a thing, not a person, not personnel.
Mhm.
But I go along with the majority, so.
Okay, so if people are comfortable with just with rejecting that idea, so am I. I'm good with that. Good point, Darlissa, but I think for now, and we could always check state statutes to see what powers he does have. Then the next three are again ones where, like, I've not done my due diligence, and I apologize for this. This was one where we had three ideas for the fire commission. One was the requirement that the fire commissioners be electors. We were in favor of that generally, but there was a letter opposing one from one of the commissioners. So this was one where I just wanted to check out, is this a big deal? I wanted to talk to some of the members of the departments to say, hey, is that something that people are passionate about? Number three, again, we were in favor of generally, and Don wrote very eloquently about this one to me, is that the fire marshal shall move them from the commission, subject to approval of the mayor, to an appointment by the mayor, right? They're full-time personnel. They're not volunteers. They're just like any other city employee. Again, favorable disposition to that. Again, I just want to talk to Chief Jones. I just want to make sure that there's not something unseen that we're not seeing there, but that one I think we were in favor of as well. And then the one I just got to ask Chick Tatora about is that, because we didn't know what it means, was deleting the wording that commissioners shall be equal in rank and authority. just didn't know what that meant. And so I need to ask him what he was going for there. So on these three, and again, mea culpa for not getting it done, but like if we could punt on those until we have that information, I'd feel more comfortable with those. Any
Okay,
objections? People okay with it?
I'm good with that.
Cool. Then the one that we have for tonight, last one for tonight, and the last one on the list is the new technology committee. And this one I was able to peruse a little bit in different charters. And this is a pretty novel idea. I did not come across another charter with the citywide technology committee like this.
Yay for us, we're the leaders.
So it is innovative and it is kind of for us to shape, right? So I think that the question here to the group is, okay, John had a proposal. He had a proposal for how it should be staffed, and I can pull that up. But kind of wanted to get people's, and I will pull that up, give me a second. Wanted to get people's opinion on, I think we were generally in favor of the idea, but also get, what people think about specifics on it.
Well, John gave a good break.
I would think we need some input from IT people, Dan.
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead, David.
I'm losing you a little bit, but Dan,
Yep, go ahead, Dave.
what I was saying was that I think we could use some input from some IT people as to how we should move forward with this.
Yep. Yeah, this is one where I am certainly no expert in technology. I'm lucky I got the Zoom working. The only thing here that my reaction to John's proposal, I like your idea, Dave. We should talk about who that is and who we get in. My only reaction here was that, hey, why should the technology committee be any different from any of our other appointed boards, right? So why shouldn't the mayor appoint, but the Board of Aldermen approve? We can require them to appoint X number of people from the Board of Education or recommended by the Board of Education. But I don't want to create a separate process than the one that we just tried to standardize. So that was one. And the other one was, I don't know if the IT director should be members of the committee versus the staff that's staffing the committee, right? Just, didn't know that. And so, and again, we would do probably a 4-year term rather than a 2-year term, given we're standardizing everything else. But beyond that, like, wanted to get, we should, I like Dave's idea of getting in somebody who knows IT to talk about this.
I mean, could we make it, you got, I agree with you. I don't like the staff being voting members. Right? We're trying to come up with 7 members, if that works, unless you want to come up with 9.
Too big.
I think 7 is good. The 3 members by the BOA, 3 members by the BOE, and a member appointed by the mayor.
Yeah, but we were trying to get away from the mayor making appointments. They need to be ratified by the Board of Aldermen. Right, Dan? That's what we've done all the way around, so.
But I'm okay with saying that, to say that the Board of Aldermen shall, or the mayor shall appoint 3 approved by the Board of Aldermen that are from the Board of Education or suggested by the Board of Education.
Right.
So to constrain his appointment power a little bit to say, yeah, you got to give the board, if this is truly going to be a citywide committee, you got to give the Board of Ed a voice on it.
Yeah, well, giving them 3/7 is pretty good, right?
That's right, but mayor appoints, BOA approves, and mayor must appoint 3 suggested. Right, what the mayor then did, so 3 suggested by the Board of Ed, and the other 4 presumably being people who are experts in IT who are going to actually be able to help guide this thing, right? It's not, no offense to us, the 7 of us.
Right.
Mhm.
I think equally important, if you were going to bring this, if you were going to put this forward, you'd have to really hone in and define the scope of what
Mhm.
this committee would do, because
Do-
John's image is probably the image of the other committee where it's just a liaison with the Board of Ed or maybe a.
Well, the thing that in John's vision here, if I'm reading it right, is that this actually becomes almost equivalent of a building committee. That
Mhm.
yes, they're coming up with a long-term strategy, but if funding for technology is approved, whether by referendum or by the Board of Aldermen, it's actually this technology committee that gets to spend it.
Mhm.
I think that's John's vision, is that, hey, just like a building, there's a big capital expenditure. We're going to give, he has the number 2.5 million here, make it up. We're going to give them a chunk of money and they're going to figure out how to spend it. So it's a pretty powerful committee, just like a building committee in John's vision. We could make it less, where it's just come up with a plan. But I think John wanted to give this committee some teeth, and I kind of agree with him.
Do decisions
And
by the
also-
building committee need approval by the Board of Aldermen? Like if the building committee makes a decision to do something, do they need approval on that by the Board of Aldermen?
Don would know that, Don. Does the planning, a building committee need approval, or they have kind of carte blanche to spend once the spending's been approved?
The building committee commits, but the mayor has to sign the checks.
Right.
So I mean, and that of course is
That's
where
my
all the action is. But no, the building committee commits, approves change orders.
Yeah.
Does it all. I guess one of my issues here would be, for instance, the limited broadband opportunities in Shelton.
Mhm.
Things that go beyond, again, just kind of the simple stuff we've always kind of engaged in, I mean, there's some real holes here. And, I think defining the scope would be a good selling feature of a committee like this.
Yeah, devil's in the details on this one.
Yeah.
So I think that this one, so in terms of an idea, I think I'm hearing everybody likes the idea. Everybody likes
Yes.
having more education, suggests 3. Everyone likes no staff, but the big work here to be done is on scope. What specific powers and what specific areas are they to focus on? Right, and so this is, as we write the language, the detail here is going to be important.
Mhm.
Yes.
Does anyone think that they should not be the equivalent of a building committee, right? Does anybody think that they should be a coordination committee, right? Where they don't have the power to commit funds, change orders, the stuff Don was talking about, versus, hey, they're just coming together to create a plan.
No, they need to have the power to spend that money where it's needed, I think. And there needs to be checks and balances and accountability for how that money was spent and was it spent effectively.
I'm not 100% sure that would, I can't see initially how that would work with a group like this, but I could just be missing the point. These are going to be real high profile issues. They're going to come up with issues that are really going to need legislative action.
Yes.
It's not going to be as if they're going, in a building committee, you're given a charge, build something that performs like this, excellent. And then you design it, you build it, you do it. This is a case where they're going to be researching, coming up with real impactful kinds of decisions. And it's going to require legislative action and probably more money than you envisioned when you empowered the committee. And
Yeah, I think there's, to your point, Don, there's an order of operations here, right? Which is first, you would want to make sure that this committee had kind of a 5-year plan, prioritized it, say, here's the most important things we have to spend money on. And if you wanted to spend more money, then, here's what we would spend on, right? Kind of in rank order, have the rationale to that. And then you spend money, right? Then you'd be like, okay, and this is what we're proposing, right? Board of Aldermen, we're proposing X millions of dollars, right, for this plan. What do you think? Well, maybe it's above or below the bonding limit, don't know. But that's up to the Board of Aldermen and the voters to decide.
Mhm.
And then I think the question is, so let's say there's a $5 million plan for a $5 million 5-year plan goes out to referendum, gets approved. Who then is in charge of actually implementing that?
Right, right. And it becomes equivalent.
Right.
Right, right.
5 years is also a long term in terms of technology. Technology changes and
Every
its
2
price
years?
changes. Yeah, even more often than that. So to come up with a
Right.
5-year plan might actually be very difficult to carry out with that in mind. So.
Yeah. That's a very good point. So good. So let me take a to-do on this one to write something up for us to shoot at as I'm writing up the version 1 of the charter. But that, I think this is a good idea. It's an innovative idea. And again, we should think through second order consequences here. But the only second order consequence that I thought of, which is you probably can't stop the Board of Education from spending their money on technology above and beyond this, right? Like you statutorily can't, once you give the money to the Board of Ed, they can do with it what they want.
Right.
So if the Board of Ed said, hey, we like what your technology committee's doing, but we want to spend $1 million on X, there's probably nothing the technology committee could do to stop that under state statute.
Correct.
Well, that
Right.
kind of goes on now because the Board of Ed comes up with money and a plan, and then the separate PTOs, they do fundraising and they give money and outfit their schools with what they think technology they want their kids to have. So they ignore what the Board of Ed says and they just do what they're doing. So that kind of does happen already.
Following the events that are going on today, I saw in New York, Governor Cuomo, mentioned that he saw, a lot of changes to education, and Bill Gates basically said, he was willing to fund some studies on that, on a new way of thinking. And so I got a funny feeling that, that's probably going to be happening all over the country. And, having a committee like this to review certain, either new procedures or new equipment that's going to be needed is probably a smart thing to do.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good. So let me take that away. Fully heard what you guys said. Let me write something up that we can shoot at. So good. So what we have left then, idea-wise, is we have the fire stuff. We have the voting for less than the number of positions, and we have the P&Z alternates. So we really have some odds and ends left, guys. Otherwise, we're going to be pivoting into the actual language. So let me propose this. Let me propose so here's the issue that I want your guys' advice on. Is so we're going to keep our meeting next Monday. That probably means I need to get all of you a version of the charter to read by like Friday, if we're going to talk about it on Monday, right? You guys need at least the weekend to be able to read it and look over it and digest it. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to get there. I might. But you guys want to pause for a week? 'Cause I know for sure I can do it in 2 weeks.
I think you need more than 1 week, Dan.
Yeah.
And go for the 2 weeks because this is very important and you do have to make a living and have a family, so. And you have to go to the grocery store, the dreaded task.
What we could do, maybe.
Hey, Dan, let's just want to keep the meeting, try to limit it to a half an hour. And if there's any questions or you want to go that route, just say, what
For next week?
do you think?
And you know what? Let's do that, Gary, in case we have the answers to some of these questions. And you know what I'll do is I will go in sequential order of like I was going to do it by the ideas. Let me go in sequential order of the charter. That way I can send you like chapters 1, 2, and 3 that we can look at. right? So we'll actually start taking it in chunks rather than me trying to do the whole darn thing. And so, yeah, that's a good idea, Gary.
That'll work.
Wherever I get to by end of day Friday, I'll send that out to folks, and then we'll review whatever we have. Good idea, Gary.
So we're meeting on the 18th.
We will meet on the 18th, 7 o'clock, just as normal.
Okay.
Okay.
The 25th is Memorial Day.
Right.
Yeah, we'll probably just move it to a different day that week.
Okay.
So, okay, good idea, guys. That's why I asked. All right, gang. Anything else for the good of the order?
No, thank you for doing all
Nope.
this. You too, Sophie.
Yeah, good luck, Ruth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ruth.
Thank
Yes,
you.
good luck,
Thank
Rose.
you.
Good luck,
Same, same to you all as well. So I look forward to seeing your final product.
Yeah.
I'll be at the
Ruth.
public hearing.
Ruth, don't
Yeah.
hang up.
We will miss you.
Thank you. Thank
Ruth,
you.
don't hang up
Appreciate
when we close out.
Okay, Sophie.
Okay.
Okay, gang. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
So,
Motion by Gary DeFilippo, second by Darla Ritter. All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned, gang. Have a great week.
You
Thank
too.
you all as well.
Thank you. Ruth, everything is waiting for you at City Hall tomorrow.
Okay,
All right, so I got the letter from Ginny.